A very good morning to you. It's Thursday, the 18th of March. You're tuned in to Arirang's special coverage of a joint press conference taking place after a high-level 2+2 meeting of South Korean and United States official here in Seoul. I'm Oh Young. We're just moments away from taking you to a scene of the joint briefing that follows 2 days of talks between South Korea's Foreign and Defense Ministers Chung Eui-yong and Seoul and U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin. So we're going to take you into the scenes of this joint press conference right now, where, as you can see, they are just finishing up the final preparations for this press conference to take place. The officials, both sides will be making their statements to the press and also receiving questions from reporters. The two high-level US officials, they've been on a week-long trip to Asia, which began in Tokyo on Monday before they arrived here in South Korea on Wednesday. And of course, this was the first cabinet-level overseas visit made by the Biden administration's representatives. And this really demonstrated Washington's commitment to its Indo-Pacific security partners, as well as Washington's aim to bolster its alliance in the face of China's expanding geopolitical influence in the region. And of course, it wants to address a lot of common challenges that its regional partners has, including the denuclearization of North Korea. So the 2+2 meeting held on Thursday, it's made all the more meaningful. It's the first to take place between Seoul and Washington in over 4 years. So as we wait, we're expecting to hear about the two governments' commitment to their regional alliance and how they intend to jointly address these issues. And it looks like the officials are now stepping into the room, ready to start this press conference. But just hours before this 2+2 meeting was set to take place, North Korea's first Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs, Choi Sun-hee, spoke out saying that Pyongyang will ignore America's attempts at making contact if it doesn't retract policies that paint North Korea as the enemy. So perhaps during this joint press conference, we'll hear the allies' response to that. And of course, throughout this whole press briefing, we will be providing you with interpretation as well in English. Now, the presser is expected to be quite brief, as Mr. Blinken is set to return to Washington via Anchorage, Alaska, in the United States, where he and Mr. Biden's National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, they're going to meet with Beijing's top officials, their senior diplomat, Yang Jiechi, and State Councilor Wang Yi. Of course, America's top diplomat and defense chief, they're aiming to secure the full backing of its biggest allies in East Asia, namely South Korea and Japan, before coming face-to-face with their Chinese counterparts on Thursday. So they are set to jet off there after this press conference. So many of us, many journalists, and also the international community, they are waiting with bated breath on what these officials, these Seoul and Washington officials, are going to say, especially amid this geopolitical tension and rivalry between Beijing and Washington. So as you can see on the screen, it looks like the press briefing is set to start in very shortly, and the journalists are there ready to pound them with questions, I imagine, after the two sides are done giving their view and their statements on what has come out of the meeting. And of course, each of the US secretaries, they had their separate meetings with their South Korean counterparts from Wednesday, which is when they arrived in South Korea. And we know, we've been told that they were discussing the regional alliance, America's regional alliance in the Indo-Pacific region, and they were also discussing the issue of North Korea's denuclearization and how to engage Pyongyang in meaningful talks in terms of really laying out the Korean peace process, as well as, of course, what everyone is interested in, the denuclearization issue. And while it was also made known by Mr. Blinken yesterday that Washington has, on several accounts, tried to contact the North Korean regime, they have not had any responses in recent weeks. And of course, the silence was broken by the chairman of the regime, the North Korean regime, Kim Jong-un's sister, Kim Yo-jong, who lashed out at South Korea and the United States for continuing to hold what the North views as preparation for war, which would be South Korea and the United States joint military drills, which have been held on an annual basis very regularly. And although they were downsized, of course, Pyongyang, they aren't happy with the continuation of these exercises. So she expressed her dissatisfaction there. And well, it looks like there's a bit of a delay, so we are going to bring you some news first. Top diplomats from Seoul and Washington, they sat down for talks in Seoul on Wednesday. The U.S. State Secretary was critical of human rights issues in Pyongyang, while the host nation's foreign minister stressed the importance of the Korean peace process. Our foreign affairs correspondent, Yoon Jung-min, has this story.
In the first face-to-face meeting on Wednesday with South Korea's Foreign Minister Chung Eui-yong since President Biden took office, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken was vocal about human rights issues in China and North Korea.
China is using coercion and aggression to systematically erode autonomy in Hong Kong, undercut democracy in Taiwan, abuse human rights in Xinjiang and Tibet, and the authoritarian regime in North Korea continues to commit systemic and widespread abuses against its own people.
In the meantime, Seoul's Foreign Minister Chung Eui-yong emphasized a strong Seoul-Washington alliance on North Korea and other issues.
We hope to hold a South Korea-U.S. summit in the near future and continue with the momentum for the prosperity of the bilateral relationship. I also hope that we can find a firm settlement with the Korean peace process through these talks.
Blinken responded that the bilateral alliance is a linchpin for peace, security, and prosperity for the Indo-Pacific region and the world. He called the alliance unwavering and ironclad, while also calling for trilateral cooperation with Japan on North Korea.
We'll continue to work together with the ROK and other allies and partners, including Japan, toward denuclearization of the DPRK. And of course, we're standing together in support of our shared values. We believe in democracy.
The U.S. top diplomat also offered his condolences to the families of the victims and the Korean community as a whole following the fatal shootings in Atlanta on Tuesday local time. Seoul's foreign ministry added that the two chiefs also agreed to cooperate on the new Southern policy, COVID-19 and climate change. On Thursday, foreign ministers and defense chiefs from Seoul and Washington will hold the first 2+2 meeting since 2016. After the meeting, they will attend the signing of the new Special Measures Agreement, announce a joint statement, and hold a press conference. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
Now, the U.S. Secretary of Defense also met with his South Korean counterpart on the same day. The two sides reaffirmed their strong alliance, especially against threats from Beijing and Pyongyang. Our Kim Da-mi has more.
During their first ever in-person meetup in Seoul, South Korea's Defense Ministers Seok and Pentagon Chief Lloyd Austin once again reaffirmed the importance of a strong Seoul-Washington alliance, saying they have always been driven by a mission of ensuring security and prosperity on the Korean Peninsula. Calling the alliance a linchpin of peace and stability, Seoul underlined that the two countries' cooperation will continue and in fact grow closer than ever.
In the process of developing the ROK-U.S. alliance, maintaining our combined defense posture and deterrence against North Korea is the most crucial of all. Going forward, we will continue to strengthen our solidarity.
And in agreement with Seoul's remarks, Austin pointed out that the alliance has never been more important, especially given the unprecedented challenges posed by North Korea and China.
I am here today to reaffirm to the United States' commitment to the defense of the Republic of Korea. You and I can both agree that military readiness is a top priority and that our combined readiness must ensure that we are ready to fight tonight if needed.
Also agreed on Wednesday was that security cooperation between Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo is crucial in dealing with Pyongyang's nuclear missile threats, as well as forming a cooperative security structure in Northeast Asia. Ahead of the so-called 2+2 meeting on Thursday, Austin said he looks forward to the signing of the new special measures agreement that reflects the Biden administration's commitment to reinvigorating and modernizing democratic alliances around the world. 김다미, Arirang News.
Once again, you're tuned into Arirang's special coverage of the 2+2 high-level security meeting between United States and South Korean officials here in the country. And again, we're still waiting to hear more about this. We're waiting for this joint press conference between the officials to start after their high-level meeting, which is made all the more meaningful because it was the first this Asia trip by the State Secretary and Defense Secretary of the United States. It was their first high-level trip overseas since the Biden administration took office. So very meaningful. And there is quite a lot. And we just heard that the 2+2 meeting has ended. So we are expecting them to step into the room very shortly. And there's a great amount of attention on what the officials will have to say, especially after the US officials' trip to Japan, where Tokyo officials and Washington officials, they came out with a very clear stance on China, and Japan, in fact, broke out of its rather cautious approach towards really discussing the sort of issues and concerns regarding China's human rights and its geopolitical clout. So many are paying attention to what Korean officials are going to say, whether they're going to be fully on board with Washington on this, or whether there might have been more discussion on the issue of North Korea and denuclearization. And we've heard that the officials, they've discussed both topics, both agendas, but today we're waiting for more clarity on this, especially as North Korean officials in just over the past days have made very clear that they're still wanting Washington and Seoul to really do away with their regular joint military drills, which they regard as an exercise for war against North Korea. So perhaps we will also hear the Allies' response to that. And we continue to see movements in the joint press conference room, where all the journalists, as you can see, are the diplomats and government officials. They're waiting for the secretaries to step into the room and really tell the public, tell members of the press what they have been discussing. And we are, of course, expecting them to really make their commitment to the US alliance in the Indo-Pacific clearer. And of course, this is something that the United States is really hoping to have before the secretaries, they jet off to Alaska to meet with their Chinese counterparts. So the US is really trying to lead this campaign in the Indo-Pacific region to really bolster the alliance, the security alliance between South Korea, Washington, and Tokyo in order to counter these sort of security threats that they're facing in East Asia, especially amid the US's rivalry with China in all areas, well, in most areas, from economic issues to political influence, territorial disputes, and of course, the technological standoff between Washington and Beijing as well. So the US making its first ever, the Biden administration's first ever high-level overseas trip with this Asia tour this week. The US is making a very clear pivot towards Asia once again. And it's obviously called Seoul the linchpin of its Indo-Pacific strategy, and Japan its cornerstone. So very two big allies that the US really wants to get on its side as it continues to square up against China in their strategic competition and rivalry. We're now seeing the Korean ministers of defense and foreign affairs, as well as their US counterparts, take their places at the podium in the joint press conference room. So we are expected to hear them speak very shortly. Let's take a listen to what they have to say.
Let us now begin our joint press conference. And the address will first begin with Korean Foreign Minister Chung Eui-yong, followed by U.S. State Secretary Anthony Blinken, Korean Defense Minister Seo, and U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin. And after their remarks, we will also have 2 questions each from the press members of Korea and the U.S. First of all, let me first introduce Korean Foreign Minister Chung Eui-yong. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to first of all mention and give my warmest welcome to U.S. State Secretary Anthony Blinken and the U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin. And it is a great pleasure for me to stand here beside them as well. And yesterday we also had a very brutal violence and shooting in the Atlanta of the U.S. And we would also like to extend our condolences to those victims. And we also confirmed that there were some sacrifices of the Korean nationals, and the government will also have increased interest in this incident, and we will also monitor the incidents going forward. And we also extend our deepest condolences to all of the citizens of the U.S. And following this incident, we also have heard from the U.S. State Secretary Anthony Blinken and U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin on their tribute, and we would also like to extend our warmest gratitude to all of them. And once again, I would like to welcome the State Secretary and the Defense Secretary of the U.S. And this is the first time in 11 years since the 2 secretaries of the U.S. State Secretary and the Defense Secretary has visited Korea. And we also have reaffirmed our 7 decades-long ironclad alliance, which is serving as the linchpin of peace and prosperity on the Korean Peninsula and in this region and in the global community. And we also have reaffirmed the importance of expanding and upgrading this alliance going forward. And with this momentum, we also hope to see that we will hold a ROK-U.S. summit at the earliest possible opportunity. And we also have agreed that amid the global challenges, we have understood and shared understanding on the importance of elevating our cooperation going forward. And we also have agreed to extend and also upgrade our levels of discussions and expand the scope of future-oriented cooperation going forward. We also carried out the signing of the Special Measures Agreement between the 2 countries, and we believe that this also reaffirms the ironclad alliance between 2 militaries. And once again, we have also confirmed the 3 major consensus on 3 areas, and we believe that the North Korean issue, first of all, is of urgent issue, and we also agreed that solving the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula is of crucial issue. And second, in order to solve the North nuclear issue, we also agreed to expand and to exert our full diplomatic efforts. And third, the U.S. will go over its North Korean policy, and also they will be based on the coordination, and the South Korean government will also cooperate going forward. And going forward, the 2 countries will have agreed to cooperate on a future-oriented direction. And the 2 countries also agreed to have a trilateral, mutually beneficial and future-oriented cooperation between Washington, Seoul, and Tokyo. And the South Korea's new southern policy will also play a big role, and we also agreed to expand our cooperation as well. And we also agreed to touch upon the issues that threaten the rest of the global community, including climate change and COVID-19. Moreover, us 4 ministers and secretaries, that is, we also have once again reaffirmed the efficacy of the 2+2 ministerial meeting and continue to hold these meetings on a regular basis going forward. And we also agreed once again that when South Korea stands together with the U.S., we can become stronger than ever. And based on diplomacy, a rule of law, and other shared values, we will be basing on these shared values, and we will also be elevating our U.S.-Korea Korea alliance in a more comprehensive and robust manner so that we can meet the needs of the era. Thank you very much.
감사합니다, 장관님.
Thank you very much,
이어서
Foreign Minister Chung
국무장관께서
Eui-yong. Next, we will
말씀하시겠습니다.
invite U.S. State Secretary Anthony Blinken for his remarks.
Good morning, everyone. And Mr. Minister Woo-young, thank you for hosting us. It's an honor to join you, to join the Defense Minister, and of course, my friend and colleague, Secretary of Defense Austin, for today's 2+2 ministerial meeting. Thank you also just for hosting me for 2 days in a row, and to the people of the Republic of Korea for, as always, their incredibly warm hospitality. And I want to reiterate again our outrage and grief over the deaths of 8 women in Atlanta yesterday, including, we hear, 4 of Korean descent. We stand with the Korean community and everyone united against violence and hate. This trip, as has been noted, is the first by any member of President Biden's cabinet overseas. And it's no accident that Secretary Austin and I came here. The U.S. Republic of Korea alliance is, as we have long said, the linchpin of peace, security, and prosperity in Northeast Asia, the Indo-Pacific, and around the world. But we came here not only to reaffirm that fact and to reaffirm our alliance, but to build on it. And that is exactly what we've been doing. We just witnessed, as the Minister said, the initialing of an agreement in principle on the text of the Special Measures Agreement. And this is the result of very diligent efforts by both sides to arrive at a fair and equitable agreement. It will strengthen our alliance. It will strengthen our shared defense. This effort and our trip to the region is part of the Biden-Harris administration's commitment to reinvigorate and modernize our alliances and partnerships around the world, which are critical and crucial to the security and prosperity of the American people. That's the message we've underscored earlier this week in our meetings with our counterparts in Japan. That's the message you see reflected in the joint statement that we signed and will release today. Our renewed engagement will put us on firmer footing to address a series of shared security challenges in the region and beyond, including the threat posed by North Korea. President Biden plans to complete a North Korea policy review in the weeks ahead in close coordination and consultation with the Republic of Korea, with Japan, with other key partners, including reviewing pressure options and the potential for future diplomacy. But as we conveyed to Foreign Minister and the Defense Minister, the goals of this policy are clear. We are committed to the denuclearization of North Korea, reducing the broader threat the DPRK poses to the United States and our allies, and improving the lives of all Koreans, including the people of North Korea, who continue to suffer widespread and systematic abuses at the hands of their repressive government. We also discussed China. We are clear-eyed about Beijing's consistent failure to uphold its commitments, and we spoke about how Beijing's aggressive and authoritarian behavior are challenging the stability, security, and prosperity of the Indo-Pacific region. Beijing's actions make forging a common approach among our allies all the more important at a time when we're seeing a rollback of democracy and human rights around the world, including in Burma, where the military is attempting to overturn the results of a democratic election by brutally repressing peaceful protesters. It is more important than ever that we stand together for the values, for the interests that unite us. And we covered a range of challenges that transcend borders, including cybersecurity, health security, climate change. At the time this alliance was forged, many of these threats were not even on the horizon, but there certainly are now, and we're determined to work together, particularly through trilateral cooperation among the United States, South Korea, and Japan, to meet them. While our diplomacy and security ties are ironclad, I think it's also very clear that the U.S.-ROK relationship goes even deeper than that. It's rooted in mutual trust, in shared values, deeply intertwined economic interests, and of course, and maybe most important, generations of family and community ties and having one another's back in the most difficult times. That's what we saw in the early days of the pandemic when the Republic of Korea donated 2 million face masks to our country to help us fill a critical shortfall. 500,000 of those masks went to our Department of Veterans Affairs, which means that some Americans who 70 years earlier had fought side by side with Koreans found themselves protected from a deadly virus thanks to the masks donated by the Republic of Korea today. That is what an alliance looks like. Thank you, and it's really wonderful to be with you.
감사합니다, 장관님.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. And next we have the Korean Defense Minister, Seo
네,
Uk.
오늘 5년 만에 개최된
In the first time for the 5 years, we are also holding the Korea-U.S. Foreign and Defense Ministers meeting, and we have also seen the robust and ironclad Korea-U.S. alliance, which was forged 70 years ago. And we once again also agreed that the alliance is an ironclad one based on our mutual trust and the principles of our shared values. And we also once again agreed on the military deterrence and the readiness here on the Korean Peninsula. And together with the maintenance of the combined defense posture and formidable deterrence against North Korea, we have also evaluated the issue of opcon transfer, and we also agreed to extend our discussions going forward. And the ministers and the secretaries also agreed in order to reach our common goal. We also agreed the importance of cooperation and communication going forward. And the two Koreas, the two countries that is, which is aiming to achieve prosperity and peace on the Indo-Pacific region, we will be carrying out South Korea's new southern policy, and we also agreed to respond to the transnational issues and challenges of climate change and COVID-19 going forward. And we also agreed and we also reaffirmed that based on this ironclad alliance between the two countries, our alliance should be comprehensible and also be future-oriented. We will also extend our cooperation going forward. Thank you very much. And next we have U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin.
Minister Suh, Minister Chung, Secretary Blinken, it is a privilege to be here in Seoul with all of you. First and foremost, as my colleagues have pointed out, I am also saddened by the horrific attacks in Atlanta, Georgia, yesterday, where we believe several women of Korean descent were killed. Our deepest sympathies go out to all those affected by this horrific crime, and specifically the families of those who were killed. And I share my colleagues' view that violence of this type or any other type has no place in our society. Now, today's meeting is a testament to the importance of our alliance. With the many challenges that we face, our bond, forged through shared sacrifice, is more important now than ever. For 70 years, the U.S. commitment to the U.S.-ROK alliance has remained, as Secretary Blinken described, has remained ironclad. It is founded on our shared interests and values and is among the strongest bilateral, interoperable, and dynamic alliances in the world. And it is critical not only to the security of the Republic of Korea and the United States, but also to the peace and stability of Northeast Asia and a free and open Indo-Pacific region. The United States remains fully committed to the defense of the Republic of Korea, using the full range of U.S. capabilities, including our extended deterrent. As the United States and the Republic of Korea continue to maintain a robust combined defense posture, we also remain committed to the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. And there is no daylight between us on this point. And today, we discuss the way forward on a host of critical strategic and operational issues. And at the top of my agenda was ensuring a shared understanding of the importance of maintaining military readiness. Our force remains ready to fight tonight, and we continue to make progress toward the eventual transition of wartime operational control to an ROK-commanded Future Combined Forces Command. While meeting all the conditions for this transition will take more time, I am confident that this process will strengthen our alliance. And so we have a lot to look forward to as together we address global security, the global security challenges, and engage in long-term strategic competition, namely with China, which, as some of you know, is our department's pacing challenge in the years ahead. And today, we continue to work together to identify areas for collaboration within our respective regional strategies, particularly upholding a rules-based international order and building capacity for partners in the region. I'm especially pleased with the initialing of the Special Measures Agreement, which reflects our commitment to this alliance and illustrate the Biden administration's promise to revitalize our network of alliances and partnerships. And so that is why we reaffirmed our commitment to the U.S. ROK Japan trilateral defense cooperation, because we recognize the value of multilateralism. And we value a forward-looking agenda to address both current and future shared challenges. Our work in today's foreign and defense ministerial meetings reflects our firm belief that leading with diplomacy, backed by a strong combined defense posture, and working closely with our allies and partners will allow us to meet every challenge and outmatch every competitor. It is why we place great value on the U.S. ROK alliance, which has remained the linchpin of peace, security, and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific for nearly 3/4 of a century. We faced many challenges together, and we've risen to the occasion each time. We are grateful to the call of the Republic of Korea, one of our closest friends and most steadfast partners. And I'm confident that our two countries will work to continue to work shoulder to shoulder to meet all challenges and any competitor for the next 70 years and beyond. As I said to Minister Suh in our meeting yesterday, we will continue to go together in the future. Thank you.
네, 감사합니다, 장관님.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. Next, we will have some questions from the press. Due to time constraints, we will also limit our questions. As mentioned, 2 questions from each of the journalists from Korea and the U.S. First of all, from the Korean press. From 세계일보 Hong Ju-young journalist, please raise your question. I am Hong Ju-young from 세계일보. First of all, I would like to question on 2 main areas. First of all is the policy on North Korea. It is a question for Mr. Antony Blinken and Mr. Chung Eui-yong. As for the Singapore agreement, do you think that we should continue to carry this out? And do you have any comments to share with us on the North Korean's Choi Sun-hee's latest statement that has been revealed today? And also, the next question is on the regional cooperation. First of all, for Mr. Chung Eui-yong, the visits by the U.S. Secretary, do you also have received the invitation from Washington's Quad cooperation? And does Mr. Blinken, do you believe that South Korea can contribute to Washington's planned Quad cooperation? And do you also have any requests on improving the Seoul-Tokyo ties? Do you have any plans going forward for the trilateral cooperation as well? Let me address the question first.
Okay.
As for the North Korea policy, the Singapore agreement, we believe that in the perspective of the South Korean government, we believe that in improving the ties between North Korea and the U.S., as well as establishing a long-lasting peace on the Korean Peninsula, we believe that this special agreement, specific agreement that is, has also touched upon these basic principal issues, and therefore we need to also continue to carry this out going forward. And as for the first Vice Foreign Minister of North Korea, Choi Sun-hee's statement earlier this this morning, she has given a remark following the March 16th remark from the North Korean regime. As for North Korea, we believe that we are carrying out this high-level talk between South Korea and the U.S., and they also have a close eye and monitoring of these developments here on the Korean Peninsula. And also, as for the ministerial meeting between the South Korea and the U.S. As we are holding this out, we believe that North Korea is sending its message on its part for the two countries as well. And we also discussed these related intentions during our earlier meeting. However, South Korea and the U.S. will continue to cooperate and coordinate on this specific issue. And the South Korean government also will see the new Biden administration's policies regarding North Korea. We will also endorse its contact and its liaison with the North Korean regime, and we sincerely hope that we will also revive the North Korean and U.S. talks at an earliest opportunity possible. And as for the State Secretary and the Defense Secretary's visit to South Korea, we did not have a direct mention of the Quad invitation. However, we believe that South Korea's New Southern policy, together with the Washington's policy, how we could achieve a common goal, was an issue that has been discussed earlier. And the South Korean government also believes, we have been mentioning this multiple times, but we also based on the principles of embracing and transparency and comprehensiveness. And if this meets with the shared values of Washington, and if these also contribute to the peace and prosperity in this region, and if this is beneficial for us, our country, we believe that such a stance will be upheld going forward.
Thank you very much for the question. I think, as you know, with regard to North Korea, we're engaged in a comprehensive policy review, which we hope to complete in the weeks ahead. But what's significant about that review is it's being done in very close consultation with the Republic of Korea, with Japan, with other allies. We have a shared concern, a shared interest in having a strong, effective, and coordinated policy and proceeding together in lockstep. We're focused on reducing the threat to the United States, to our allies, posed by North Korea's nuclear program, its missile programs, and to improving the lives of people in North Korea, throughout the region as well. And we will continue to consult very closely in the weeks ahead as we complete the review. With regard to the Quad, I would just say it's, I think, as you know, it's an informal grouping of like-minded countries that have come together to deepen cooperation on a whole host of issues. Many of these issues, we're also working very closely with the Republic of Korea. We find that working through some of these sub-regional groupings, including the trilateral work we do with Korea and Japan, is very beneficial in addressing some of the challenges we face. One of the I think realities of the moment we're in is that when you consider virtually all of the issues that are actually affecting the lives of our people and of our citizens, whether it's climate, whether it's the pandemic, whether it's emerging technologies, and I could go down the list, not a single one can be effectively addressed by any one country acting alone. We have to find ways to deepen cooperation, to deepen coordination with like-minded countries. That's exactly what we've been doing with our close allies and partners here. It's what we do in our trilateral cooperation as well with Japan. It's what we do through the Quad. It's what we do through ASEAN. That is, I think, the imperative of the moment we're in. And we're very, very pleased that we've been able to do the work we've done here today, because it's evidence of our determination to revitalize, to strengthen our alliances, to build on them, because that is the single best way to tackle the problems that actually affect the lives of our citizens.
네, 감사합니다.
Thank you very much. And next, we will also have questions from the U.S. press.
The next question will go to Christina Ruffini of CBS.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Mr. Secretary, North Korea has so far not responded to U.S. attempts to engage And as was just mentioned, today the Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs called such efforts a cheap trick and said U.S. calls for complete denuclearization were groundless rhetoric. When it comes to this policy review that you mentioned, given how far the two sides are apart, is the U.S. considering a policy of containment rather than engagement with North Korea? And will you be asking the Chinese to take any specific actions regarding Pyongyang when you meet in Alaska? And Mr. Foreign Minister, if I may, you said it appears North Korea is reevaluating its relationship with the U.S. Do you feel North Korea is more or less dangerous after the efforts of the previous administration? And have you asked Secretary Blinken to convey any message or request from your government to the Chinese? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Look, with regard to North Korea, the most important outreach and engagement we're doing is with our partners and allies. That's a big part of the reason why we're here. It's a big part of the reason why, as part of the review that we're doing, we're in close consultation with the Republic of Korea, with Japan, with other allies and partners who are concerned by the actions and activities of North Korea. And I don't want to get ahead of the review and prejudge its conclusions. We'll have an opportunity, I know, to talk about that going forward. China has a critical role to play in working to convince North Korea to pursue denuclearization. China has a unique relationship with North Korea. Virtually all of North Korea's economic relationships, its trade, are with or go through China, so it has tremendous influence. And I think it has a shared interest in making sure that we do something about North Korea's nuclear program and about the increasingly dangerous ballistic missile program. So I would hope that whatever happens going forward, China will use that influence effectively to work on moving North Korea to denuclearization.
2018년 이후
After 2018, on the Korean Peninsula, establishing a peace and also alleviating tensions, we have exerted full efforts, and we believe that this has led to achievements as well, numerous achievements. And especially on the 2019, we also reached a comprehensive agreement, a military agreement between the two Koreas, and we believe that this is still the basis, and this is also being kept by the two Koreas up until now. And we believe that this needs to be garnering attention. And during the past 3 years, the ROK and the U.S. have carried out close cooperation and coordination and has engaged North Korea continuously in order to solve the North Korea's denuclearization issue. And we also have proven that our coordination can solve such an issue going forward. And with this ministerial meeting that has been just held, we believe that we have reached an fully coordinated policy, and we agreed to implement this going forward. And based on this principle and foundation, we believe that we can effectively engage North Korea going forward. And we believe that the full and complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula is something that we can achieve going forward.
네, 감사합니다.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. And next, we will also have some questions from the Korean press, first of all. And we have YTN Lee Seung-yoon, journalist. Good morning. I am defense correspondent at YTN. I have questions for Mr. Seo-uk. And as for the U.S. and Quad cooperation, which is being intensified, is there anything that the U.S. has suggested to South Korea regarding the Quad alliance, such as joint drills or anything forward? Has there been any discussions on this? And what is the South Korean government stance? Moreover, as for the U.S. Defense State Defense Department, it is going over its review. We would also like to ask this question to Mr. Austin as well.
Secretary Austin, welcome to South Korea. In order to strengthen national defense, the Korean government wishes to build nuclear-powered submarine and light aircraft carrier. Do you think that they would be feasible and essential assets for Korea-U.S. combined forces? And is the U.S. willing to help Korean government to build nuclear-powered submarine? Second, although you emphasized the challenges posed by North Korea and China yesterday, China is still necessary to solve out the North Korean nuclear issues. So how would you cope with this dilemma? Maybe Secretary Blinken can answer for these questions too. Thank you very much.
Let me address the question first. As for the U.S., it has carried out also the issue of joint drills as for the Quad Alliance, and we had no suggestions from the Washington side. And during this meeting, we have also seen that the Washington aims to establish peace and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific region. We also shared the view of the Washington. We discussed these related issues and other issues related to this area. However, we did not have a specific mentioning of the issue that you have just raised. And as for the U.S. and ROK military alliance, the U.S. is also going to go over its review of the threats and the dangers, and we believe that the cooperation between the two Koreas as well as with Japan is very crucial. Of course, South Korea has its history issues and conflicts with Japan. However, we also share the same view that this trilateral cooperation is very crucial as well. And as for the Defense Ministry here of South Korea, we are also carrying out high-level drills, and also we have the exchanges and cooperation on the combined forces level, and we will be intensifying these going forward. And we believe that the following will be also addressed by Mr. Austin. However, the U.S. Defense Department is also discussing and reviewing the permanent overseas-based troops. However, we believe that as for the issue of USFK dispatchment or the remobilization, we did not have such a related issue at hand right now. And as for the removal or the moving of the assets or the forces, we did not have these on our agenda during the ministers' meeting. However, we also have confirmed during our earlier meeting, but the Washington aims to achieve peace here on the Korean Peninsula, not only on the Korean Peninsula itself, but also in the region as well. So this is my answer for your question.
Secretary Austin.
Yeah, so thanks. On the issue of nuclear submarines or any other capability that the Republic of Korea might seek to acquire, I think it's best that the leadership of the Republic speak to that versus me. And so I'll leave it to Minister Suh to entertain those questions in the future. You should know, though, that we're focused on ensuring that we have the required capability to defend the alliance and to defend the ROK if and when called upon to do that. And our efforts to continue to work together routinely to strengthen our capability, I think, is evident in kind of everything we do. And it's what we really spent a lot of time talking about in the last 2 days. So we have tremendous capability at hand. We're going to increase that capability by ensuring that we can continue to operate as a combined team.
And I want to first commend you on demonstrating the art of the multi-part question. And again, with regard to Beijing, Beijing has an interest, a clear self-interest in helping to pursue the denuclearization of the DPRK, because it is a source of instability, it's a source of danger, and obviously a threat to us and our partners. But China has a real interest in helping to deal with this. It also has an obligation under the UN Security Council resolutions to implement fully the sanctions that the international community has agreed are there in response to North Korea's program and to its provocations. So we look to Beijing to play a role in advancing what is in, I think, everyone's interest.
네, 감사합니다.
Thank you very much. This is the last question, once again, from the U.S. press.
Final question will go to Laura Seligman of Politico.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Secretary Austin, you spoke about the importance of maintaining military readiness. For the past 3 years, the joint military drills between South Korea and the United States have been downsized due to ongoing negotiations over North Korea's nuclear arsenal. What impact has that had on readiness? And do you plan to continue the smaller scale exercises in future, or will they return to their former size and scope? Secretary Blinken, if I may, as has been mentioned, North Korea's Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs said today that there would be no dialogue until the United States drops what she called its hostile policy. Can I get you to respond directly to that? And by insisting from the start that the end state is its complete denuclearization, aren't you closing the door to talks and setting the stage for 4 years of stalemate? And finally, if I may, for Minister Chung, the US delegation has repeatedly called for the denuclearization of North Korea, specifically North Korea, not the Korean Peninsula. So does the government of South Korea back this call rather than the Korean Peninsula? Or can I get you just to respond to that, please?
Well, thanks, Laura. I'll start. And the question was training and readiness. And as you would expect, for me and for everyone that works with me and for me, readiness remains a top priority. And I know that that is a top priority for our teammates here in the Republic as well. And so we're always looking for ways to make training better. And I think not only here, but around the globe, we've learned to be flexible, we've learned to be adaptive, and we have always been effective. In terms of whether or not, what the training regimen will be going forward, that'll be a joint decision between us and the ROK, and we'll continue to work with the leadership here in the ROK to address those issues.
And Laura, with regard to the comments from North Korea, I'm aware of them, but what I'm most interested in right now are the comments and thoughts of our allies and partners, which is why we're here as we complete our review. So that's what we're focused on.
Denuclearization on the Korean Peninsula actually back in 1991. This was when the two Koreas declared a denuclearization declaration, and to this end, two countries have agreed to also disband and suspend all of the, and also agreed on the 7 areas related to denuclearization, including the manufacturing and testing and so forth related to the nuclear issue. And we believe that this proves and this gives a clear definition to what denuclearization on the Korean Peninsula is. And also, the South Korean government has given its willing to also discard all of its weapons and nuclear weapons here on the Korean Peninsula. And we believe that the South Korean government has expressed such an intention. And to this end, we also will for North Korea to denuclearize itself, as also touched upon in the declaration back in 1991. And this is why we say, instead of saying North Korea's denuclearization, we say the denuclearization on the Korean Peninsula, because this is what we can say with confidence. And even on the global community, we say the denuclearization on the Korean Peninsula, and we believe that this phrase is actually more accurate and correct. Thank you very much. And this concludes the ROK-U.S. Foreign and Defense Ministers meeting press conference. Thank you very much.
With that, we wrap up Arirang's special coverage of the joint press conference of the South Korea-U.S. high-level security meeting. If you've missed it, we'll cover it throughout the day on Arirang News, so don't worry. Our next newscast is coming up in the next 10 minutes, so do stay tuned. Bye for now.